So the press we were using to do my rear subframe bushings over the weekend worked for them, but the knuckles that I need them for, it's way too big. We tried using a vise also, but that turned out to be too small. So I spent the rest of the weekend looking around for where I could get a bushing press, and I checked multiple AutoZones, a couple R&S Strausses, Pep Boys, Advanced Auto Parts, Home Depot. Nobody had anything. So Sean and I are going to roll out to Harbor Freight, see if they have something, and maybe I can get these bushings pressed out this weekend.
So yeah, we are talking about Frederick Osmo's 2017 drift car, Toyota Corolla IM. I don't know about this. What do you think, Wayne?
5-door hatchback. It's interesting. You were just saying that it's a transversely mounted front-wheel drive car, basically converted to all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If it's a rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive car, I can kind of see that more, something, if you had like an all-wheel drive BMW or whatever, and like, I don't think that's a big of a deal, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if it's an all-wheel drive car that is based on a rear-wheel drive platform and all you're really doing is detaching the front drive shaft, like, that makes sense to me. But if you have a front-wheel drive based car, especially in the US markets, and then you're modifying it to be rear-wheel drive based on an imported all-wheel drive platform, it's like too many hoops to jump through.
Yeah. Even like the Evo that Team Orange had for a while, or still has, the Evo 9, and I think the 10 too. They actually flipped the engine in those.
The Evo 10 too? Is that like Final Fantasy?
Yeah, exactly. It's a sequel. But those cars, they flipped, the transverse engine around. Although I think the Evo 9 or 8 or whatever it is in Tokyo Drift, that is actually still transverse, and they just kind of bodged it for the movie. There's only that one scene at the docks.
So. I thought I knew about cars until I met Sean, and he knows so much more than I could ever hope to, that it's insane.
Yeah, but Wayne handles the mechanics, so he knows all that stuff. I don't know anything about working on cars. 2 failed engine swaps, a Miata and an E30, and, maybe I'll just have Wayne build my cars from now on. So yeah, we are talking about Frederick Osmo's 2017 drift car, Toyota Corolla IM. I don't know about this. What do you think, Wayne?
5-door hatchback. It's interesting. You were just saying that it's a transversely mounted front-wheel drive car, basically converted to all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If it's a rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive car, I can kind of see that more, something, if you had like an all-wheel drive BMW or whatever, and like, I don't think that's a big of a deal, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if it's an all-wheel drive car that is based on a rear-wheel drive platform and all you're really doing is detaching the front drive shaft, like, that makes sense to me. But if you have a front-wheel drive based car, especially in the US markets, and then you're modifying it to be rear-wheel drive based on an imported all-wheel drive platform, it's like too many hoops to jump through.
Yeah. Even like the Evo that Team Orange had for a while, or still has, the Evo 9, and I think the 10 too. They actually flipped the engine in those.
The Evo 10 too? Is that like Final Fantasy?
Yeah, exactly. It's a sequel. But those cars, they flipped, the transverse engine around. Although I think the Evo 9 or 8 or whatever it is in Tokyo Drift, that is actually still transverse, and they just kind of bodged it for the movie. There's only that one scene at the docks.
So. I thought I knew about cars until I met Sean, and he knows so much more than I could ever hope to, that it's insane.
Yeah, but Wayne handles the mechanics, so he knows all that stuff. I don't know anything about working on cars. 2 failed engine swaps, a Miata and an E30, and, maybe I'll just have Wayne build my cars from now on.
How many cars have you had at this point?
Like 6, I think. 3 E30s, a Miata, a Jeep. Yeah, multiple stuff. Some of it not really mine, some of it I just drove.
Yeah, I had my 240, I had my 330, and now I have the Rogue.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
I have a pretty cool right-hand drive E30 that sits in the garage and doesn't move under its own power anymore. So, you know, Wayne's at least working on his. Mine has been sitting for months.
Yeah, but yours is a lot closer to being drivable. Mine doesn't have a rear end in it right now.
Yeah, that's true. But mine has, you know, shredded guibo and all kinds of driveline issues. So we'll see what happens this season. It's good. We found Jesus, guys. I saw a video at Ebisu where some guys took this and pushed the entire back end of a JZX90 out, and it hit the wall. It must have hit it at about 40 miles an hour and just completely caved in. And I mean, it must have taken them so long to do it, but they were able to do it.
Bearing press again. Picked up a cheap C-clamp, so probably be able to use this. Not the best thing, but if it breaks, it was only like $6.
So Wayne's gonna get something to eat, but I haven't eaten yet, and I'm pretty hungry just looking at this sign. I guess, you know, when you're the editor, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Alright, can I get a number 6 combo with chicken?
I actually have no idea what car this is up ahead, which is rare. No, well, thanks. Yeah,
I've heard of that.
What's a Toyota? Oh, we'll see if we can get alongside. I don't know, maybe it's like an Eagle or something?
Mazda.
Mazda? What? Is that a 323?
626.
626.
LX.
Jeez.
2.0i.
Interesting. Survivor car.
Is that what the I's for? Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I love coming home and having packages waiting for me. So I got a GoPro from my brother, but it didn't have any of the accessories. So I got a new waterproof case, which is sweet. It's a suction cup mount for the car. I can do some action shots. Also, I don't know if anyone cares, but this is the Marvel Epic Collection Excalibur Volume 1, The Sword is Drawn. The Epic Collections are really good reprints of all the classic issues. So I've been focusing very heavily on getting a lot of the X-Men ones because they're probably my favorite superhero team. So my friend Victor is in town from Florida this weekend, and we're heading out to Jersey City. It's absolutely terrible weather out. It's raining so bad right now, but hopefully we can still... The weather has to be terrible, but it's worth it to hang out with friends. Oh, water on the lens. That's kind of weird. Is it better? I don't know. I think where's Jose? I forgot. What? Why do we get ice cream if it's so cold out? She said, let's... I am absolutely soaked after walking around for the last 2 hours, but it was a lot of fun, so I'm glad I got to hang out with Victor. I haven't seen him in a while, but now it's time to go home, dry off, warm up. So this is why it's so difficult for me to get out and work on the car, because literally all this stuff has to get moved out of the garage before I can even really get to the car. But now that there's a clean shot underneath, let's go ahead and I'll show you what I've been working on. So here under the car you can see everything has been removed rear of the transmission. And I've taken my time to go through here, hit everything with a wire wheel and a drill, scrub it down with some Scotch-Brite pad and some brake cleaner just to get any extra debris off, and prep the surface, let it dry really well, and then hit it with a coat of rust inhibitive primer and a coat of rubberized undercoating. So everything under the car should be pretty well protected going forward in the future. I even extended that around into the wheel wells here. Additionally, while I was under here, I figured I would replace all of the hard lines, as some of them, particularly the fuel ones, were rusting through. So I was able to get all new brake lines from Nissan, which are a direct swap in. The problem that I'm having right now is that the fuel lines you can no longer get brand new from Nissan. So I had to actually make my own with some stainless steel tubing. And I'll show you how I did that in a second. But the problem that I was having is that the end of these lines, as you can see here, are just straight. This one I tried to flare a little bit with a brake flaring tool, but I'm not happy with how the end of that turned out. So the new tool I got actually allows me to go in and put a bubble on the end of the line so it looks like factory. And while I'm in here, while I have these back out, I'll probably adjust them a little bit. They don't line up quite right, so it'll be my opportunity to tweak them just a little bit so that everything sits nice and flush here. You can see how they kind of all go their own way. While I had everything out, I went ahead and replaced all the rubber lines also. So these are all the rubber lines for the fuel tank that have been replaced with brand new fuel line, all brand new clips and hose clamps here. I also replaced all the rubber lines and hose clamps underneath the hood. I took this little bracket off and just cleaned it up, gave it a coat of paint so it looks nice. And additionally, I replaced my fuel filter with a Z32 twin turbo fuel filter, which is a little bit bigger so it can keep up with the flow rate from a turbo engine, which this is going to be eventually. So if you want to make your own fuel lines, there's a couple of things you need. First, this is a homemade tubing straightener. You can get them pre-made, but they're usually one size per, and they're like 80 bucks a piece. So I just made this with pieces of angle iron and some screen door rollers that I got from Home Depot. When you get the stainless steel tubing, it comes coiled up like that. So you need to straighten it out before you can rebend it into the shape that you need. So once you have your tubing straightened out, you can cut it to length using one of these. This is a tubing cutter. Pretty straightforward to use. So what you want to do is line this up in the rollers like so. Measure out where you want to cut and make sure that cutting wheel is on there. Tighten it down. Spin the tube. Tighten. Spin. Tighten. And spin. Tighten. Spin. You want to go like a 1/16th, maybe to an 1/8 of a turn with the cutter each time. You don't want to bend it, and soon enough, cut right off. Obviously, when you're dealing with a longer length of tube, you'll want to rotate the cutter around the tube, but to illustrate this, it's easy enough to just rotate the tube. So next up, we have the deburring tool. So this one from Eastwood actually has an interior deburrer and an exterior deburrer. So what you want to do is take your cut edge, run this around on the inside a little bit, flip it around, Run it around on the outside a little bit, and just check this every so often. Make sure it's not sharp, no burrs on it. Also, the cutting tool comes with a deburring file here, which you can use to flatten off any high spots on the edge. So once you're satisfied that there's no sharp edges on your cut, you can move on to the next step. The final step is to bend your tube to the shape you want it. I have this bender. I think this is also from Eastwood, and this actually does 3 sizes. I made a mistake a couple times and put my tube in the bigger die, and when I bent it, it put a nice kink in it, so I had to start from scratch. So I packed a bunch of duct tape in here to prevent myself from putting the tubing in the wrong die. So really you just want to compare this to the piece that you have, note where the bends need to go, line it up in here, you can see on here it says 0, that's where the start of the bend is, and then you have angle gauges right along here so that you know where you're going to be ending up approximately. There's no super easy way to do it, just compare it to what you have and bend away. When you're ready to bend, just give it a nice squeeze like that. And this tool ensures that you get the right radius with no kinks. If you want to be extra safe, you could put a little WD-40 on the outside so that the bender slides nicely along the tube. So now the last part is to put the bead on it. This is a beading tool I got from Graham. They're the only ones that make a beading tool for tubing this size, which is 1/4 inch and 5/16. I think you can get beading tools from other companies like Eastwood, but they don't go up that high. So what I'm going to do first is put a little bit of WD-40 on the outside of this and just a little bit on the inside. And then this works much like the cutting tool. You line up, just insert this die into the tube and tighten down on the knob here. So again, you're going to do a little bit, rotate the tube a little bit. Make sure you clean off your hands in between, otherwise you can't grip the tube. So this you actually want to go less, I think, than the cutter, just because you're forming. So you want to make the change as gradually as possible. And you don't need to go too deep, just enough to give a nice bubble for your soft line to catch on. Done, just unscrew the tube, clean it off a little bit, and there you have a nice bubble flare on the end there. So I'm going to do this to the rest of my hard lines, and then we'll get them back in the car. So there you have it, custom-made hard lines for your 240SX. Thanks to Graham Tools for making a beading tool small enough for the lines that we run and not strictly the gas-guzzling US engine sizes. If you're going to use a bigger engine, you might want to use a bigger hard line. A lot of people have told me, why don't you just run braided stainless steel all the way to the back? And the reason you don't want to do that is because the braided stainless steel line will flex and expand with heat. So you could end up with a bow in between where your two tie down points are, and you don't want to have any fuel line dropping below your frame rails, especially on a lowered car where you're likely to scrape. Otherwise, you could end up with some fuel and fire problems and just nothing that we want to deal with. So the beating tool is not cheap, but it does give me the peace of mind that I'm not going to blow up my car while I'm drifting, or that my fuel lines aren't going to blow off. If you want to try making your own hard lines, you need 1/4 inch inner diameter stainless steel tubing for the vent tube, and 5/16 inner diameter stainless steel tubing for the feed and return lines. Also, if you want to replace your soft lines, just make sure you get soft lines rated for EFI cars. They do sell fuel line not rated for that, and under pressure you could deal with a rupture. Again, fuel all over the place, not a happy day. This is the itemized list of the things that I have left. As you can see, it's really 7 major things to do, and then I started to break them down into smaller tasks. Right now I'm very frustrated with the bending and installation of the fuel lines. It's just not coming out great, and it's getting to the point where it's going to be the limiting task to how much I can progress, because once I get the fuel tank back in, then the suspension can go in pretty easily. But to get the fuel tank back in, I have to get the lines in, and I'm just not happy right now with how they're coming out. They are all mounted up under the hood at least, but when I'm trying to get them to run along the frame rail in the clips that they were originally clipped into, they aren't coming out quite right, and there's a lot of stress on them, which worries me, because I don't want them popping off and falling below the frame rail. So it's going to take me some time, I think. I really wish that I could have just got the original fuel lines, but it seems that they've stopped stocking them pretty much everywhere. So yeah, gotta figure out what to do with that. To add to my disappointment about my fuel lines not going in quite right, I came in to set up this new GoPro mount that I got, and it turns out that the camera that I got from my brother is actually not a Hero 3 as I expected, but just a Hero, which means it's significantly thicker than this case allotted for. So I'm gonna have to send this case back and get another one. And also, since this is a Hero 1, which is like the first GoPro they made, I don't know how great the quality is gonna be, but it's worth giving a try for now. It's better than nothing. It seems like when you're working on a car, you're always gonna have disappointments and setbacks, and I try and remind myself not to let it get me down and turn me off to the project completely. I just decided to take a break from that, move on to a few other things, and I'll come back to it once my head's clear and I can figure out exactly how I want to tackle it. But thanks for watching. So I set up an Instagram and a Twitter. Both of them are The Real Drift Eng, or The Real Drift Eng, on Twitter and Instagram. The links will be in the description below, so if you could give me a follow, that would be much appreciated. Also, if you like the stuff that I'm doing, click the like button below, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see. Some words of encouragement would be much appreciated right now. But other than that, I will see you next time.